On this episode of Team Building Saves the World.
I've written 29 books, I think, 29. Yep. I've got another one on the go. And team building. Well, first of all, stop it. Stop writing that down. Okay? Baseball, that's kind of baseball, but not really. And it's, it's fun and it's okay to laugh. And they don't like you. They're going somewhere else. They're going to another job. They want something different.
Hello, team. It's me, your old friend Rich Rinnensland, host of Team Building Saves the World. And I have a question for you. Do you think of yourself as a cognitive learner, or would you say you were more tactile in your learning? I'm only asking because today we're talking about learning styles with Hall of Fame speaker and team building facilitator and expert, Tyler Hayden. But before we do, I have to share some love with all of my supporters at Team Bonding. If your team is ready to experience teamwork through the power of play, then visit teambonding.com to learn more. Now, team, get ready to learn about learning with author and former chicken farmer, Tyler Hayden. Tyler, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you being here, man.
Rich, I'm stoked to be here. We are going to save the world today.
We are.
Who's kidding who? This is how do you not say yes to hey, would you like to come and save the world with team building? Of course the answer is yes.
So I usually like to start the podcast in one specific way for my team out there, which is just to get to know you a little bit better before we dive a little more deeply into the conversation points. But I got to say, I did a little background on you. I did a little search before we began.
Okay.
How do you start?
Dark web or regular web? Where did you look?
Let's not go into that because somebody might be listening. Okay, I don't want them to. Okay, good. Thank you. But no, how do you start from chicken farming to becoming a Hall of Fame speaker and team building facilitator and expert?
Yeah. You know what? I started this business. It was crazy because I graduated from university. And when I graduated, I had a degree in outdoor and environmental education. So rock climbing, hiking, and canoeing.
Nice.
My dad was permanently disabled and I wanted to start a business, or I decided to start a business close to home so that I could help to take care of him. So I started an outward bound company and I was making $300 a weekend to take a group of people out rock climbing. And then I got asked, I started the largest student leadership association in North America when I was in high school. And I got invited to come and speak at a local high school. And they gave me the same $300 for an hour of my time. And I got to crack jokes and do the stuff that got me typically kicked out of class. Nice. And it was just it was a no-brainer at that point. I fell in love with speaking and I fell in love with team engagement. And I was able to marry the two together in the youth world for the first in the school assemblies for the first probably 10 years of my life, and then into the corporate world after that. So there's the quick and dirty.
Nice. And as I've
along the way, chickens and bees along the way.
Well, as I also noticed in the research, you are, quote, Canada's answer to alternate energy, close quote.
Yeah, I am.
What does that mean? And what does it mean in context of working with teams? For you?
Sure. So it was coined by a meeting planner. So I do a lot of keynote stuff.
Yeah.
So a lot of my team engagement stuff is I'll have a room of 200 or 8,000 people, and we'll do team building together, along with high energy stories, that kind of stuff. I'm just from word go, I'm fast paced. So that's where all that came from.
Okay.
And our activities, our games and stuff that we do are really, they're laser focused in a way that gets teams engaged. So I have a really unique way of deciding on which activity to use. And it just turned into high octane fun because by looking at the learning profile of the folks who are in the room, we've really been able to create some great success for meeting planners. So that's where high energy, Canada's answer to alternative energy came from, because it's just high octane fun and development from start to finish. So yeah, that's where that came from.
Fabulous. But how important is that to you, do you think? For a facilitator, do you think that someone like you, and I have to admit, you and I, it sounds like we're on pretty much the same wavelength, which is when you're on, and it doesn't matter what's happening to you personally, physically, what have you.
Right.
All that will come back once the event is done.
100%.
How important is that to you, do you think, for a successful team building facilitation?
Yeah, for from a facilitator's standpoint,
Right.
I think that the way I explain it to new trainers is, if you look at the aggregate of the cost of the people that are in the room, and if you have 1,000 people in your room, each, let's say they're nurses and they're making $30 an hour. Well, that's $30,000. That's what that hour costs.
Okay.
So there's some pressure. So you have to turn all of that other stuff off, and you really have to make sure you deliver, because that's just the unit cost of what we're delivering. And when we look at the the opportunity cost of what we can create from that point, if we deliver well, the responsibility is huge, and the opportunity to create some really cool things in our communities and in our businesses just begins to skyrocket. So I think that's, when I look at those two things, that's the important part when you're working with trainers and helping them to understand what they do.
And as I've seen, you have worked, whether it's with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies or whatever the Canadian equivalent of that actually is, and you work with like shop floor employees. So
100%. Yeah. I work with, so internationally, so I work with like the YPO, the WPO. I work with entrepreneurs. I work with Pratt Whitney's. I've worked with the Subways of the world. I help to work, whether it's with their frontline managers or their C-level managers, whoever is kind of in the room.
Nice.
I'll work with all of them.
Is there a difference in how you handle the engagement with them, though? And do you think there needs to be?
Content becomes a little different. You know, I'm a firm believer that team building is what we do with people, not to people. Here, I'll show you one of my favorite little graphics. So team building is what we do with people, not to people at the end of the day. And being able to understand that, when people come in the room, you have to be culturally connected, and it has to provide value at the end of the day. I've been in this business for 29 years. Initially, a lot of the team building stuff was about just having fun, and it was about, we were hiring recreation people to come in and to provide a team building experience. But what's happened over the years is that we've had to really sharpen our tools and really understand not only the fun side of it, but we have to deliver on those business objectives. So any good team event means starting with looking at what the strategic objectives are, what their sales strategies are, what are we looking at from an employee retention point of view? What are our values? All those things, and getting clear with what the educational objectives is. So whether you're working with a C-level folks or whether you're working on the shop floor, they all have learning objectives that they need to look at. And another one of my favorite quotes is, it's good team building is good team learning. And when we're able to provide a great learning environment and one that aligns with the people in the room, then we can start to move the needle with inside the organization.
So let me just ask you, from what you've seen through your experience, is there a formula for creating a successful team?
Yeah, so there is. I've written 29 books, I think, 29. Yep. I've got another one on the go. One of the things I wrote about, I was looking at some research. So Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, he wrote flow theory. I don't know if you've run across that. Super cool. I was reading about flow theory. He's a cool psychologist, all about how the brain works, how about peak performance, that kind of stuff. And then I was doing some reading from Howard Gardner, who is a Harvard professor who talks about multiple intelligences. While I was reading those two things, I got to thinking about how they intersect. And I came up with a tool called Multiple Intelligence Quotient. So what it is we look at all of the learners in the room and we look at their learning style. So Howard Gardner talks to, there's 8 different learning styles. There's mathematical logical, there's interpersonal, there's linguistic, there's naturalistic, there's interpersonal. The 8 different learning styles. If we could look at kind of what the common learning styles are for those teams. So for example, we're working with a sales team, interpersonal intelligence reigns supreme within a sales team. Also mathematical, logical. So when we start to design and suggest team building activities, we start to look at activities that frame around, good communication stuff that's happening, making sure that there's collaboration, because that's that interpersonal learning thing that they want to do. And if they're mathematical, we want to make sure that there's some distinct, like, measurable points, and not just like fluffy ones where everybody gets a purple ribbon. It's like there's a winner and a loser. Like, I was working with some project managers from Florida, and this one project manager said to me, she said, Tyler, she goes, I work with type A aerospace, what were they, technicians of some kind, rocket scientists or something. And I said, well, they're all mathematical, logical. And she goes, I don't know what to do with team building with them because they don't want to do anything. So I gave her an activity. She tried it, and it was exactly that. It was measurable. It was quick. It hit on all their learning outcomes, what they would look at. She wrote me the next day and said, Tyler, I need a second activity. They're hooked. What can I do next? And that's the key. So if you can really start to distill the folks that you're working with, and then be able to say, okay, how do they want to learn? And if I can, it's like Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? People want to talk about themselves. People want to do something that they want to do, right? And that's the most fun for them. And learning styles, multiple intelligence quotient is absolutely the way to make that work.
What kind of game do you use in that kind of situation? I mean, what specifically would you? You don't have to give me. You don't have to give me the way of the store.
The
or
NASA
anything,
engineers, totally. I will give you a freebie. This is like you can. Yeah, this is probably one of my faves. It's called commonalities. I mean, you've probably played it before, where you have kind of a group of 6 or 8 sitting at a table. You can do it with 3. You have them sitting at a table together. The only rule is they have to come up with as many commonalities that they share with the people in their room, and you have multiples of these tables, and they have to come up with commonalities around like things you can't necessarily see. Like, we all have hair, we all wear glasses. Like, it has to be like, we've all traveled overseas, we all drive pickup trucks, we're all wearing thongs, whatever it is, right? And then whatever team has the most number of commonalities, you give them like a minute and a half to come up with as many as they can. They win fabulous prizes. And it was literally that simple. She was looking for something just to start in the start of her meeting, just to get people excited and re-energized. So that's it. That's commonalities, and it's simple. And the reason they loved it is because it wasn't fluffy. Yeah. It didn't take too long, right? The type A engineer does not want shit to take too long. They just want like bang, bang, bang. Okay. They want to get it done, and they want to be able to measure it. And they want to know that they're better than the table beside them.
There's always the competition element.
Right. So they loved it. They ate it up. It was a win for her. She anyway, we kept working together. She got a lot more wins.
So how do we take that same team dynamic that you were talking about, and we take them from team building to team learning?
Yeah. It's a journey, right? Well, here's the thing, what happens, a lot of organizations will host a retreat, or they'll have an event, right? And right on the schedule, it says team building. Well, first of all, stop it. Like, stop writing that down, okay? Because you're telling people like, oh, this is what we're assuming we're going to do, and this is the only time that we do team building. Right. Team building is like it's a continuous process. It's part of the flow of your business. So you literally begin to plan that for 24/7, 365, right? All the opportunities to connect are times that we build our team. And that matters because that's about building that engagement energy. It's about how we engage people, how we get them to start to move forward. So, if we're starting up a meeting, we do a little something there. If we're doing a retreat, we're doing the guitar builds for charity, or we're doing the bike builds for charity, right? Because we're making a difference beyond the room that we're in. We're starting to do those types of things in a big way, but it's the little things that we do progressively along the way. Like when I coach and help managers to sharpen their saws, I'll get them to put 10 pennies in one pocket, and I'll say, it's about the little things that you do during the day for your teams, and for every little thing you do to help to create a positive difference, move one of those pennies from your right hand pocket to your left hand pocket, and don't stop until all 10 pennies are in your left hand pocket. And that way that the manager's starting to build a practice of being positively responsible for their teams. And then by doing that, we begin to adjust the culture, and that's how we begin to improve the engagement. I mean, we look at numbers right now. Gallup poll is saying that active disengagement in the US, this is from 2024 or January, is on the rise to 17%, and engagement is dropping to 2014 levels of 31%. So the things that managers are doing to help to make a difference is they're clarifying job expectations, they're ensuring employees feel cared about at work, and they're encouraging professional development. All three of those things is team building.
Yeah.
Whether it's professional development, whether it's understanding job expectations, and whether it's showing that they're cared about, that's the things that we do every day as a manager, as a leader. It's not just that one moment that is on the agenda.
And active disengagement, can you give us a definition of that? Is it something like we've been talking about quiet quitting over the past couple of years?
Yeah, active disengagement is like physically not showing up for work. You're actively like finding ways of not doing the work that you're supposed to be doing. So like, it's like teenagers when you ask them to cut the lawn, right? It's like as active disengagement.
You are talking my story in so many
right?
levels.
You're talking my weekend.
Yeah. But yeah, so okay. Do managers not realize how important they are to this process or to keeping the process going? Do you find
they do? It's like managers are kind of like that hourglass. I mean, we've seen the hourglass. They're right in the crux, like all the stuff that comes down from sea level and all the stuff that comes up from the shop floor.
Right.
They're at that point, and it's just it's like a stranglehold, right? They've got all this pressure from the top and all this pressure from the bottom. I think sadly organizations don't place enough value on what our employee-facing managers are doing, whether a manager, supervisor, whatever that is.
Right.
It's the first place that we cut. And we say, okay, well, we're going to add, we're going to change our OD. And now instead of having 20 people report to you, you have 100 people reporting to you. And that kind of change really makes it impossible to be able to do your job. Whereas you look at the success of something like Savannah Bananas and how they're starting to really change how you connect with your customer. We have to have that same type of shift inside of our organizations. Savannah Bananas has shown that, the customer is important. You pay one thing and everybody comes in and they get a burger and they're having a beer and they're having a great time. And we've got baseball that's kind of baseball, but not really. And it's, it's fun and it's okay to laugh. And as we start to look at our teams, we still have to do the work. I mean, we're responsible to our shareholders and we're responsible to the bottom line and we're responsible to our measurables, but at the same time, how you get there doesn't have to be a slog, right? It can be more Savannah Banana. It can be authentically fun. It has to be fun to that manager's style. It can be fun. It can be interesting. It can be engaging. It can be all of those things. And we want to do that. I mean, we want to do that. I'm going to show you one more slide. I'm going to show you this. This is the reason why we're doing it.
For all my, I'm sorry, Ty, just for a real quick second, for all my team out there who's just listening to this on the podcast, Tyler comes with his own memes, and he's been flashing them on the screen.
Firing them up.
Nice job. I like it.
65 over here. We're looking at why we want engagement. It's 20% higher sales. It's 21% higher profitability. It's 70% higher productivity. It's 10% higher customer metrics, 40% fewer defects, 70% fewer safety incidences, 41% lower absenteeism. That's why engagement matters. When I work with managers, I tell them, we don't have a budget. I say, well, if you could reduce your claims to WCB, to the compensation board, if you could lower your insurance risk,
right?
Wouldn't it be, and team building does that. Right? If you are having trouble finding employees, well, we're talking 17% higher productivity. If you have 10 people and you can make them more engaged, they're going to give you, let's say 10% more productivity.
Okay.
Well, you got 10 people at 10% increase. Bingo, bango, that's a full FTE. That's an FTE. That's one person working for you that you didn't have to pay for.
So for that mid-level manager right now who is out there and thinking, this sounds great, give me one actionable strategy that they can use.
Simply, I mean, so we got the 10 pennies. I gave you that one.
Okay.
So well, I'm going to give you two now, Rich. So we're gonna open up the vaults and we're gonna find another one. So the 10 pennies is probably one of my faves. The other thing that we can start to do is exactly what we were talking about in the one of the first slides that I put up about the active disengagement, is really getting serious and understanding what people's job expectations are. So not just spending time looking at, well, let's take exit interviews.
Yeah.
Managers do exit interviews. Stop doing exit interviews. Stop. Because those people left. They don't like you. They're going somewhere else. They're going to another job. They want something different. Talk to the people who are staying. Do a stay interview. Like, take them out for a coffee and say, why do you love being here? Why is this place amazing? What is it that keeps you here? What do we do that makes you feel like a valued employee? What part of your job do you love? How can I support you? Like, those questions. Do a stay interview. Find out why people want to be inside your organization and find ways of delivering more of that. Because that's your culture. That's the culture connect that's gonna resonate with your best employee.
But how can we do that on the everyday and still make it sound like this is something fun that we get to do together, as opposed to just me begging you to tell me how to keep you on?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's about being authentic. Like, not all managers are fun. I've had some managers that are not fun. But if you're authentically who you are, and if you start to look at your team's MIQ and the individuals inside that MIQ. So if we start to look at the learning intelligences of an individual, let's take a kinesthetic learner, like a police officer, somebody who's a construction worker. They learn with their hands, they do with their hands. If you're going to give them information and you want to keep them, deliver them instead of a handbook. Give them the opportunity to practice, to do some OJT. They're going to want to do that hands-on stuff. Okay. So, on the daily, that's what we're doing. If we have an interpersonal group, maybe we're working, or a linguistic group, we're working with maybe like editors or lawyers, then those are the folks that you want to have that procedural document that's written down. They're going to want that. They're not going to want to do the OJT, right? Okay. So by understanding how people learn, then we can start to begin to deliver in a way that connects to how they learn and how they want to be treated. That's why MIQ is like, it's like the magic bullet, right? It's the magic bullet of how we lead people. It is the magic bullet of how we build teams. For so long, how many years has the average North American or person in a developed country spent in school? Right. How many years? And so we are very comfortable with learning a certain way. We're also very comfortable getting our devices showing us exactly what we want when we want it in the way that we want to receive it. So as a manager, if you're going to fight uphill trying to do it your way, you're going to lose every time, right? You want to find their secret sauce. You want to find their secret sauce and help them to understand that they're at the center of what it is that you're doing.
So how important is gamification in all of that? I mean, is that just a way is it the sugar coating on the bitter pill? Or
yeah, I think
because it sounds like what you're saying to me is if you're just doing these little things every day, you're getting your teamwork together, you're getting the build going. Well, do we need to trick them by playing with them?
I don't think we trick them, because I think people see through that. It's the fake news of the business world, right?
Sure.
It's the hey, we got you some swag, and it's like, okay, like I don't need another shirt, and my gut looks really bad in these tight golf shirts.
Oh,
right?
Look, another tote bag.
Yeah, right. How many of those do we need? So that's not going to resonate with them. But so gamification's good in that. But I think that gamification, too many organizations have taken it in like a holistic kind of, we're going to do this all the time. And then it loses its luster. Okay. Right? Like part of, I'm going to show you another tile. Another thing is this. So my model for good team learning is exactly this. And what we were talking about, gamification has to be unique in order for there to be good team learning. And team learning is at the center of what we're doing. The content that we're delivering has to be relevant. It has to be unique. So if we're going to do the same thing the same way all the time, then we're going to start to bore people and they're not going to want to become engaged. It'll actually work against you because it won't be challenging. It'll be just another day of whatever. Making bikes. We're making bikes again. Right?
Why does everybody throw that in my face? I'm just saying, you are no way the first guest who has said bike building is a complete waste of time.
Right? Well, because it's not unique, right? Like, okay. I think, what team bonding does with their guitar building, that's unique. Skateboards, that's unique. The graffiti stuff that you do, that's unique, right? That's different. It's not happening everywhere. And that I think is, from a strengths of organizations, I think that's one of the greatest strengths of team bonding is they're creative and their ability to constantly come up with new and unique ways of engaging people. That's magic. That's what this is all about. Team building is 3 F's.
Okay. Go.
It's fun, it's fast forward, and it's fix.
Gotcha.
Okay. So fun is like the engaging, let's have a good time, recreation, let's get to know one another. Fix is when everything goes sideways. You hire a facilitator to come in, like fix these negative relationships of these people who have to work together, right? Square peg, round holes. We figure out how to get them to connect. That requires a facilitator. And then there's the fast forward. And that's the stuff that we want to be doing all the time, which is taking business objectives, adding some gamification, adding some of that fun piece, and building learning that brings our business forward.
Okay.
That's the magic. That's the magic of team building. That's how we change the world, is we don't disguise it. We integrate it into what it is that we're doing. It's like extracurricular activities at school. They're co-curricular activities. You're learning skills by being on a basketball team. You're learning skills by being part of the art club. You're learning skills by doing an environmental cleanup. Those are co-curricular. It goes back to all the learning that you're doing in school. Team building is exactly the same. It is co-curricular. It's not extra. It's not an extra.
We at Team Building, we've got about 125, I think, at latest count of actual right now active things that we do. And that's not including the things we've left by the wayside because they've lost their luster over the years.
100%.
And you created over 100 different events yourself. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I own Team Building School, and we're kind of like a DIY thing. I've got a couple of my things are in your DIY school or your DIY store. Mine. I have ADHD, so I end up building unique stuff because people call and they're like, what would be really fun? I'd be like, that would be awesome. Let's do it. Next thing you know, I got a tailgate party, and then the next thing you know, we're doing a beach tour and like whatever. So that's just for my own entertainment. It's that unique stuff that really makes a difference. So it's what keeps me excited, right?
So, but I'm saying with the wealth of activities that we have at our disposal, how can that ever increasing manager out there know that they're getting the correct match as opposed to being mismatched with something that's not going to be a win?
Well, so you want to know your corporate history. That's number one. So, number one person you want involved in the conversation is the admin assistant who's been involved in the company for the longest amount of time. Okay. They know everything that's happened. All right. So that's value center number one. So sit down with them, then start to look at the type of people who are going to be at the event and really start to think about like, how do they like to learn? Understanding like what type of learner they are from those 8 that I suggested earlier. Okay. And then start to look at the activities and be like, okay, well, which ones connect with that? And then most importantly is to reduce the fluff factor by starting to look at how does this fit into our business? Okay. Like, how is this actually going to make a difference? How can I tie our new sales strategy into guitar building, right? Like I've got you know those little pine box derby cars,
Yeah, yeah.
that the scouts build. So I have an activity like that, and I built it for. They were a group of accountants at a large firm, and they're all partners. And what we did is each one of the cars, they had to take one of their clients and do some branding work to understand what their client was all about. That they had to build a box, like a little podium, and then we had these different races that all had to do with their core objectives that were coming forward. And by integrating all those things, and that's what a great team builder can do, is they can start to align those learning objectives to the activity itself, so you get a more fulsome debrief, right? You get that fulsome transfer of learning, as opposed to Outward Bound calls it letting the mountain speak for itself, where you do the activity, you're like, we're done, and you walk away and you're like, wasn't that great? And that has value. But if you can say, wasn't that great? What did you do in order to get there? How is it that that's going to make a difference in the work that you do? How do I see you doing that in your regular everyday life? All that, like all the things. That's the gold, right? Because you've just invested a ton of money and time in building something that is going to be hopefully building improvements in your organization and the world around you.
And how important have you found is the added ability to give back to a community?
The work that we do invariably gives back to the community, because anything that we are doing in team design typically is about building positive team relations, and hopefully there's a spillover effect in the world as we send people away. They're not, wanting to jack cars and hold up corner stores. Let's hope they're. Let's hope.
If their corporation is built around that, then they kind of need to re-look at that organization.
Yeah, 100%. There are other team building things that you could do. So I think that that's one. But I think that the way that we really create a difference in the world, and I tell a story about jumping off of cliffs in the Swiss Alps, and I was saved by this Swiss guy named Bruno at the end of the day. Long story short, I didn't land 60 feet down on the jagged rocks. He tackled me and I landed in the pool of water. That's the short form version, but he literally put his life at risk for me.
Sure.
And when I think about the work of managers, we're basically all random Swiss guys. They're like, we're making a difference in that people are getting paid on time. That's making a difference in the world. We're able to pay our rent. We're able to feed our children. We're able to have security enough that we can volunteer for the Little League, or we can, go to boys clubs and girls clubs. We could donate to the local hospital. We have health care, like all of the things, right? And when we build stronger teams who are more engaged, we increase profitability inside the business, which then enables them to invest in community, invest in growth, invest in all of those things. That's how we make a difference. And that's why team building matters, is because it has the greatest effect. You can add a new SaaS product and you can train people how to use it, and it's going to create efficiency, but will it create a difference, right? Team building has the ability to create a difference as well as, right?
Okay.
That's what team building has the ability to do, because you're moving people in new ways, not just information.
Do you have any examples that you can give me? Again, you don't have to tell me names of clients or anything like that, but where you have seen a company that is at its worst point. They're losing people like water through a sieve, and how team building can actually help them to turn things around.
Yeah, so we had a manufacturing company, a fairly large one. They had their corporate profile inside the community wasn't the best. So they were having trouble getting people to come in and do the work that they needed to do.
Okay.
So by changing how teams interacted and how managers interacted within those teams, we were able to create spaces that were more aligned with newer styled employees or newer aged employees.
Okay.
So it's almost like retooling a machine. We just retooled the way management kind of worked with their people.
Cool. And did you see a big change for them? Did they have was it a quick turnaround?
They're doing gangbusters. They're still doing it. They've grown. They're actually just putting in a couple gajillion dollar expansion thing, like money that you and I will never see in our lives.
Yeah. True
they're
enough.
spending it on a building. So, but yeah, I think they're doing okay. So
Nice.
they're doing just fine.
All right.
Doing just fine.
Give me a myth about team building that you want people to know once and for all, to just get it out of the way.
You know what? Team building is not about the product. It's about the process. The myth is that, we're going to do team building and we have to finish it. Like we have to finish this thing. Yeah. You don't have to finish it. It's the process, not the product that matters. What matters is the process of people coming together. The time to stop an activity is when it's at its most fun, not necessarily when it's finished. Right. And too often it's kind of like debriefing. We sometimes you can debrief too far, where you can take Gouda cheese and make it into Velveeta. Like I do love a Velveeta, grilled cheese sandwich, but it has its place. And if you process cheese too much, it turns into like processed cheese sticks, right? You don't want that. So it's the process that matters, not necessarily the product. Don't worry about building the thing. Worry about how you got to the spot to build the thing, because that's where the money is.
Although I would personally like to ask for those future clients out there who want to do like a giant mural or want to build 30 bikes for charity, please finish.
Finish the bikes. Yes. Or you're finished at a mall ranch.
Right. It's happened before. It'll happen again.
Yeah.
Okay, what about advice? Do you have any advice for those future managers out there, or people who are going to be coming up to management level, that you can give them to get started?
So build a relationship. Keep your professional distance, but build positive relations. Don't let that stuff fester. Don't let when things start to happen, deal with it in the day. The 24-hour rule is always a good one. I'm a hockey dad, so when you have a problem with the coach, you give them 24 hours before you call them and berate them. You want the same thing with business. Is you want to have that 24-hour rule. You want to build positive relations, but you don't want to let things go for too long, because things can start to build a life of their own, and then it's a lot of management to try to get it fixed. Nice. Better to deal with it in the moment.
Yeah. Oh, my team out there, please give a big hand to Tyler Hayden.
Hey! I love all those people.
That's just 37 people I keep trapped under my desk just to applaud you. That's all they're there for.
Where did you get all of them? I don't even see them.
I feed them literally peanuts. But no, seriously, I got to buy more peanuts. Tyler, thank you so much for coming on, man. I had a great time. Did you enjoy yourself today?
I had a blast. I can't believe we're done. It was great.
Well, we're not exactly done.
Oh, don't turn off your podcast yet. But wait, there's more.
There is, because Tyler, it's time for my speed round.
I love the speed round.
Speed round. I got sound effects and everything, buddy. All right, so just to explain to any of my new listeners out there who may not know, Tyler, this is going to be 60 seconds of me asking you questions, and they're silly, innocuous questions to get you to think very quickly and to learn a little bit more about you. But the point is to try to get you to answer as quickly as you can. So if you are feeling at all competitive, we have had 17 questions asked and answered in the 6 years of this podcast.
I feel some pressure.
You should. You really should.
Bring it?
All right. You good? You good? Oh, nice. I like it.
Where's the beef?
There's nothing like Clara Peller merch to make my day, man. Nice job. All right, if you are ready, we're going to hear some music. I'm going to ask you the first question. If you have any problems, please feel free to let me know, okay? Because I noticed you were having problems. No, I meant like audio-wise.
Okay. No, I'm good.
Okay. Here we go. What's your name?
Tyler.
How many kids you have?
5.
Which one's your favorite?
None of them.
What's your favorite way to stay creative?
I'm a folk artist. Go to novascotiafolkart.com.
Nice. Favorite guilty pleasure TV show?
Handmaid's Tale.
If you could be any fictional character for a day, who would it be?
Goofy.
Share the most unusual hobby you have ever had.
I used to be a beekeeper.
What's the most adventurous thing you've ever eaten?
I've eaten eyeballs of cod.
Do you have any pets?
I have 2 dogs.
If you could ask them a question and get an answer, what would it be?
Why do you lick yourself there?
Name a time you've laughed really hard.
What is it?
Name a time you've laughed really hard.
Right now.
Share a time when you learned an important lesson.
I was sexually abused when I was a kid. That's not a long story.
Good God, pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
13, pal. 13. That is nice.
So we did it, so we did it, money. We did it, 13. 13, money right there.
Oh, man. Tyler, thank you so much, man. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing. You have like 20-some books out,
28.
Right? 28 now.
Coming soon.
Okay, if you can name one for people to start on the Tyler Hayden bandwagon with, which one would it be?
There are these 2.
Okay.
So The Business that Cared About People is my Bible. I wrote that just before the pandemic. It was all about in-person team building, released it 2 weeks before the shutdown. Bad timing. I wrote this one. This is Virtually Engaged Team Building Activities, all about how to do virtual team design. It's like, what does it look like? How do we do it? And they're chock filled with activities you could use, and you can learn about MIQ.
Where can they find them?
Amazon.
Fantastic. Tyler, thank you so much, man.
Cheers, Rich. It was a pleasure being here. Keep changing the world through good quality team building. Thank you very much for the hard work that you do and all the fabulous things that team bonding does. So thank you, my friend.
Tyler Hayden, everybody.